All right, cool. Well, thanks everyone for coming to the Maker Faire this year. It's been pretty exciting, and I was excited to be able to come here as well. I didn't think I was going to be able to make it initially, but then the Office for the Aging was kind enough to give us a little grant to do a small masterclass this past week at Fab Lab Adelaide for people who were 55 years old and older. And the name that they picked for it was Never Too Old to Learn. I don't like that name, so I changed it to Old Enough to Learn, because it's pretty obvious that you're never too old to learn. People learn things throughout their lives. And I think rather, the older you get, the better of a student you are. People who go to the sort of elite colleges, like the technical colleges, when they're interviewed afterwards, what's the best thing you learned at this college, they don't tend to cite individual classes or anything like that. What they say is, well, this college taught me how to learn, right? You're going to forget what you learned in classes, especially if you're doing engineering and stuff, and there's tons and tons of mathematics and things that you might not use every day. But you know how to go and find that out again when you need to, and you know how to approach new subjects and learn from them. So I think Old Enough to Learn is a better name for it. So I did a little bit of looking about some inspirational people who had learned new things and done big life-changing things over the age of 55. So here's a few little examples. Anyone recognize this guy? Good old Colonel Sanders. How old do you think he was when he founded Kentucky Fried Chicken? He had run a restaurant for a long time, but he started experimenting with pressure-fried chicken when he was in his 50s, and he really got things off the ground and founded KFC when he was 65 years old. This is a famous person in American literature, Laura Ingalls Wilder. If you ever had to read Little House on the Prairie in school, that's hers. Not so much a household name over here, but certainly in the United States. She didn't publish a novel till she was 65. And you might recognize this guy, famous Hollywood actor. No, that's not what he's famous for. It's Ronald Reagan. He's famous for being president of the United States. And he didn't run for office till he was 55. So you can really, it's not really news, I think, to anyone that you can totally switch gears and you can learn amazing things, really no matter how old you are. So here's my class for this little master class. We had this group of people here who were very keen. Almost all of them had come to the Fab Lab and done the 2-day induction course already. Only one hadn't. So they'd all got a little taste of the 3D printers and the laser cutters and stuff like that, and they were just very keen students. You can see from that photo, they've all got their computers ready and notes taking and stuff like that. They're just the best kind of students to have, right? I think that, again, the older your students are, the more they take things seriously and the more fun they are to teach, because they're not running around trying to goof off all the time. I didn't even have to set homework for these guys. They came and brought in all these bits and pieces from home. They did their own homework. That person there in the foreground, not one of the students, that's Tony Schick. He was one of the members of my very first inaugural masterclass when we put the Fab Lab together. So this past week was the 4th birthday of the Fab Lab. And when we first got it off the ground, we said, well, we'll do this masterclass, and those people, they'll be kind of the seed talent for the Fab Lab. They'll go on to run all the machines and teach the next people. And that's exactly what happened. So Tony, he made rocking horses in his spare time prior to taking that master class, and then he became our laser cutter guru at the Fab Lab. He was just like, oh, wow, we can etch this wood, we can cut leather, do all this stuff with the laser cutter. He ended up being the person who's taught almost all of our subsequent people in the Fab Lab how to laser cut. You can see here everyone sort of assiduously working on their projects. So what the project was, what I decided, 2 days is not a long time for a master class. So not a lot of time to teach people how to use CAD tools, not a lot of time to do all of the tips and tricks of 3D printing and stuff like that. So it was lucky that they had, for the most part, a little induction. So what we did basically was all introduce each other, and then I set them a task. For 2 days, we're going to work on a project. We're going to make a crazy contraption, some kind of machine where each stage activates the next stage, kind of like what in the States we'd call a Rube Goldberg machine, and in the sort of Australia, England setting, people are more familiar with this guy, Heath Robinson, who was a cartoonist and drew these cartoons with these sort of unnecessarily complicated machines. So I said, here's what we're going to do. We'll spend the morning getting to know each other and looking at some famous examples of that genre, and then we'll just get into it and we'll do a project. And that's what we did. Everyone just jumped into it with aplomb. And when we did the introduction phase, this is something that was sort of surprising to me and unsettling. I'm an engineer, and one of the things that I don't like as an engineer, I hate to see inefficiency. And when we did our introduction, people were all saying, I said, why have you done this? What kind of skills are you trying to get out of doing this masterclass? And people said, well, I'm just trying to stay current with technology and have some fun, because I heard over and over again from the students, well, I hit 55 and it gets harder and harder to get a job. So now I'm sort of doing my own thing. And that's, to me, a very inefficient way of going about business, right? We have this great amount of talent, a lot of engineering and artistic talent in this group of people, a lot of experience, a lot of willingness to learn new things, but they're not wanted in the workforce, apparently. And I think that that's a shame. It's a real waste of a resource, and that's why we need to have things like the Fab Lab around, these community facilities where, okay, fine. We have a limited workforce. We need to make sure there are jobs for young people, but we don't want to squander the talent that's out there as well. So we need to have these community facilities where people can go on to a different phase where now they can be inventors. They can work on new things, for example, or they can test out stuff. And so the guy who's sort of in the midground there, in the blue shirt, that's Lloyd. He's the oldest guy in this masterclass, and he's sort of been around the Fab Lab a bit already. He was talked into it by Tony. They met in a Bunnings, and Tony said, hey, you should really check out this Fab Lab thing, because you're obviously a guy that likes to work with your hands. Lloyd makes wooden toys for children. And so, again, being introduced to the Fab Lab was just opened a bunch of doors and a bunch of exciting new things for Lloyd to work on. He's ended up buying his own laser cutter, and now he's designed all these sort of new, higher level toys out of laser cut parts that he still makes and gives to children. So having that resource that is the Fab Lab just means that you have this talent pool that's not wasted, and it's not sort of all working off on their own at cross purposes. Here's another example. Here on your left is Thierry. He was already messing around with Arduinos and building this robotic finger using, there's an open source humanoid robot that's out there. You can go to the website and you can download all the parts for the bits and pieces of this humanoid robot. And so he was concentrating on the finger. He downloaded and then at the Fab Lab printed out the joints of this finger and hooked it up to an Arduino. And so he can control the finger and make it point at things. And if you actually go out to our booth out here where we have the machine on display, he's got his finger out there too, and there's a little glove he's made with a flex sensor on it. So the kids are loving it. I've seen them out there putting the glove on and squeezing their hand and watching the finger move. So this whole, you see now why I didn't like this title, Never Too Old to Learn. It's just ridiculous. Everyone was just super excited to be learning new things before I came along. Here is in the foreground, some of the stuff people had brought in from home to make their machine, and then behind that is a laser cut UFO. So that first morning, I showed them a few of the newer tools that are out there for generating 3D geometry from taking photos, for example, with a mobile phone, because learning the CAD and making that 3D model, that's part of the steepest learning curve, and it's sort of the most tedious process, but now there's some great tools where you can take an object and you can take some photos. Again, if you go out to where we have our machine set up, you'll see a little 3D printed Humphrey B. Bear, and that was taken from a big plush Humphrey B. Bear, and we used this software to take photos of it with a phone and then generate that geometry and print it out. So this And then there's these other programs which will automatically slice things like a 3D model and make it set up for the laser cutter. So that's a UFO model that's been automatically sliced, output on the laser cutter. And this photo here is just another example of how excited the students were. Really was like having a bunch of kids working on a project. They're all lying on the floor and making their ball race work there. But also, not goofing off and asking what time was lunchtime and stuff like a younger class often does. So that's really all I have to say about what we did on this class. We just worked and made this project. You can go and see the machine in operation. For anyone who hasn't seen it or who doesn't mind us, if you don't mind a spoiler alert, here's a little video we took today. We didn't actually, we made our pieces of the machine, and they all had a common interface. So I said, split up into pairs, make your piece of a machine. It's got to start when the string gets pulled, and then at the end, it's got to pull a string. And that way, we can chain them all together. We don't have to figure out what order it's in until on the day we got it set up. We ran it for the first time out here this morning. And at the end, I said, well, the original Maker Fairs out in the San Francisco area, they have a lot of fire artists come out. There's a lot of fire going on. And so I said, all right, we're a full-on Maker Faire now, so this time can we have some fireballs? And they said, yeah, okay, you can. So we built a little fireball generating machine to be the finale for this contraption. So here's a video that we shot today of testing, one of the first runs of this machine that we ran for the first time this morning. Not everything works perfectly the first time.
Yeah, just hang on to it. Sorry.
So yeah, got a good reaction from the kids. My favorite was I saw a kid who hadn't been watching the machine. He was off to the other side, hadn't seen what it was yet, and he was running around and jumping and imitating the fireball machine going off. So that's pretty much a summary of what we did here, and be happy to answer any questions that people have about this or any other related matter. Yeah, if not, come and talk to me afterwards. And thank you very much.